Hello and welcome, students, once again to a session of poetry. In my previous session, I have already given you an introduction of this poem, There is Pleasure in the Pathless Woods, and I had already given you the introduction to the poet Lord Byron. And from today, we'll be studying the poem in detail, stanza by stanza. So today we'll be doing the first and the second stanza. This poem, There is a Pleasure in the Pathless Woods, is an extract from the longer poem Childe Harold's Pilgrimage, Canto 4. And this part of the poem reveals the poet's love for nature. So, first of all, I would like to read the poem. The poem is on your screens, you can see, and you can keep a tab on how I'm reading it. There is a pleasure in the pathless woods. There is a pleasure in the pathless woods. There is a rapture on the lonely shore. There is society where none intrudes, but the deep sea and music in its roar. I love not men the less, but nature more. From these our interviews, in which I steal from all I may be, or have been before, to mingle with the universe, and feel what I can never express, yet cannot all conceal. Roll on, thou deep and dark blue ocean, roll. 10,000 fleets sweep over thee in vain. Man marks the earth with ruin. His control stops with the shore. Upon the watery plain, the wrecks are all thy deed, nor doth remain a shadow of man's ravage, save his own. When for a moment, like a drop of rain, he sinks into thy depths with bubbling groan, without a grave, unknelled, uncoffined, and unknown. So, you see that the title itself of the poem is derived from the very first line. There is a pleasure in the pathless woods. So we know that this poem was not written as a solitary poem. It is telling of its own that to say that there is a pleasure in the pathless woods is to say that there is a certain kind of joy in walking the path that others do not. When someone is walking on a forest trail, and you say when there is already a trail and you follow that trail, there is not that much of pleasure. But he says that there is a pleasure in the pathless woods. Pathless woods means the woods which do not have a clear-cut path and you have to make your own path. Apna rasta khud banana. And there is a lot of pleasure when you create your own path. There is a rapture on the lonely shore. So he says that when someone is walking on a forest trail and he leaves the trail for a different path and he makes a conscious decision to be alone on that path and he enjoys it. And in the very next line, the concept of rapture and loneliness are juxtaposed with one another. He says that there is rapture on the lonely shore. Lonely is when you are all alone. And there is a society where none intrudes. That is, these are juxtaposed actually. Society, what we call society? Society is a group of people, samaj. So samaj is made of people. So he says, there is a society where none intrudes. Intrude means to go somewhere where you are not invited. जहाँ कहीं आप ऐसी जगह जाते हैं जहाँ पर आपका invited नहीं है, that is intrusion. So he says that there is society where none intrudes. That is, this is a place, this is a kind of society. Over here, society he doesn't mean by the human society, but he means with the society of nature. He loves the society of nature. Loneliness is supposed to be a sorrowful feeling, but the narrator here is finding intense joy for it. Rapture is intense joy. And what is especially interesting is the idea of solitude being its own society. यानी एकांत अपने आप में एक society है. Actually, एकांत is not that he has gone on a desert or something. He is in the lap of nature. He feels nature as a big society. The idea of emptiness, of loneliness, even, is being personified into a pleasurable company. That here he says that there is society where none intrudes by the deep sea and music in its roar. That is, he loves the company of water, sea, ocean. That ocean and sea, they are the company for him. So this is the society which he wants to be with. And he says very clearly that I love not men the less, but nature more. That is, this line is very important actually, if you see, because he says that humans are, as we have known, that humans are social by nature. And this narration is not the story of an isolated or depressed individual. And it is not even the expression of a misanthropist. Misanthropist is a person who dislikes human society. But he says very clearly that he does not hate human beings, but he simply prefers the company of nature. So he says, I love not men the less, but nature more. He's clearly saying that I love human society, I love people, but when compared to nature, I love nature more than the humans. From these are interviews in which I steal from all I may be or have been before, to mingle with the universe and feel what I can never express, yet cannot all conceal. Now, what is the meaning of conceal? Conceal is to hide. So, he says that from all these our interviews, now interview, you must be thinking that interview, like when we go for interview, that there is a conversation between human beings. But here, it is very difficult to feel that these interviews are not with the human beings, but these interviews are communion with nature. So he is comparing moments in solitude to interviews with nature. The narrator declares that he feels closer to the universe itself and feels something that cannot be ignored but cannot be labeled either. So he says, from these interviews in which I steal from all I may be. He says, when I am with nature, when I am in communion with nature, जब मैं नेचर के साथ वार्तालाप कर रहा होता हूँ, तो I steal from all I may be. I may be whatever, that he was a politician, he was a famous personality. He says, with nature, when I'm with nature, I'm nobody. I'm just a human being. I'm just Byron, or I'm just an individual who has come in the lap of nature and wants to communicate with nature. It is a kind of spiritual communion with nature which he enjoys. The spiritual communion of nature with nature is why he enjoys it. Because nature is welcoming. Nature does not criticize you. When we are in the human company, when we are in society, people might criticize you, people might talk bad about you, but nature is all encompassing. Nature welcomes you as you are, and you feel very comfortable and pleasant in the company of nature. So he says, from these our interviews in which I steal from all I may be or have been before, whatever I have been or what I am today. To mingle with this universe. To mingle means to get in touch with the universe. That is, to communicate, to be in communion with universe and feel what I can never express. And what I feel is that this feeling cannot be expressed, yet cannot all conceal. Conceal means to hide. I cannot express the feeling, nor can I hide this feeling. So कभी कभी अपने साथ होता है ना कि अपन को इतनी खुशी मिलती है जिसे अपन कहते हैं ना, मैं आज इतना खुश हूँ कि मैं बयान नहीं कर सकता. That is, I cannot express how happy I am. So he says the feeling that he has when he is with nature, he says that I cannot express that feeling. But that feeling is so overpowering that he cannot even hide it. तो उसको वो हाइड भी नहीं कर सकता. तो ही सेइंग दैट बताना भी नहीं आता एंड छुपाया भी नहीं जाता. This is a very complex kind of a feeling which he is expressing over here, that this feeling comes only with nature. He gets so overwhelmed in the company of nature that this happiness or this expression, it exudes all by itself. He cannot hide that feeling. This feeling is very overpowering. So I hope you've understood this first stanza. And let me tell you this stanza is written in Spenserian stanza, which is a 9-line stanza, where the first 8 lines are in iambic pentameter and the final line is a 12-syllable iambic line. And the rhyming scheme is A, B, A, B, B, C, and B, C, C. So now we'll read the second stanza. Roll on, thou deep and dark blue ocean, roll. 10,000 fleets sweep over thee in vain. Man marks the earth with ruin. His control stops with the shore. Upon the watery plain, the wrecks are all thy deed. Naught doth remain a shadow of man's ravage, save his own. When for a moment, like a drop of rain, he sinks into thy deeps with bubbling groan, without a grave, unknelled, uncoffined, and unknown. So, in this stanza, the poet addresses the ocean. The ocean which Byron sees is the Mediterranean Sea, which he sees from the Alban Hills. And the poet is actually describing the mighty power of the ocean. He says, roll on, thou deep and dark blue ocean, roll. He says, deep and dark blue ocean. Deep, of course, we know that it is very deep. The oceans are quite deep, very deep. And dark blue ocean. Now, blue ocean doesn't mean that ocean is blue, but actually, water is colorless. And when the color of the sky is reflected on water, the ocean seems blue. Roll. 10,000 fleets sweep over thee in vain. Man marks the earth with ruin. He says that he is actually describing the power and the mighty power of ocean when compared to men. Now he's comparing nature and men. So, in comparison to men, this ocean is very vast and mighty. He says, 10,000 fleets sweep over thee in vain. Now, fleets are a group of ships. He says 10,000. Now, look at the magnitude. He says that ocean is so vast that even 10,000 fleets, the 10,000 ships, they sweep over thee in vain. That ocean can easily hold these ships, and then they cannot affect ocean in any way. It cannot control ocean in any way. That is why they sweep over thee in vain. In vain means futile, uselessly. Man marks the earth with ruin. Now he says that men, human beings, they can mark the earth, that is land, with ruin. Actually, human beings are very exploitative and they exploit nature as they have done. As we see that our earth has been exploited so badly that it is the ecosystem is losing its balance. Now the trees have been cut and mountains, they have been chopped off, and all these things, these are creating an imbalance in the ecosystem. And man is such a greedy, you can say, animal or whatever, that he thinks only about himself and he feels that he is very powerful and he can easily ruin nature. But his power of ruin is only limited to the landed area, not on water. So 10,000 fleets sweep over thee in vain. Man marks the earth with ruin, and his control stops with the shore. He says he can mark ruin only on the land. As soon as he reaches your shore, that is shore of the sea or the ocean, that he loses all control. Upon the watery plain, the wrecks are all thy deed. That is, whatever happens on water, he can mark his ruin on land. That is, when we walk on the land, we leave the marks. जब हम जैसे समुद्र के किनारे जब हम उस पर चलते हैं, रेत पर चलते हैं, तो we leave the mark. But if we start walking on water, can we leave any mark? No. जब हम पानी पर चलते हैं तो हमारे निशान नहीं रहते हैं. So that is why he says that his control stops at your shore. That is, as soon as your boundaries begin, he loses all control. And whatever is done on water, it is your deed. That is, you do everything. Whatever wreck का मतलब होता है when a ship gets wrecked, there's all the ruins and the damaged parts are there. So all the wrecks which are made are all thy deed. If you remember, you must have seen the movie or heard about the movie Titanic. Titanic was a huge ship, and which was on its very first journey or voyage, it was destroyed by an iceberg, that is destroyed by ocean itself. So he says that wrecks are all thy deed. So if something happens, the man has no power, but you can cause ruin to that ship or the fleets which are on your surface, on your bosom. Then you can create havoc on those ships. So the wrecks are all thy deed. Thy means your deed. Deeds are work, come. Nor doth remain a shadow of man's ravage, save his own. He says, not even a single shadow remains of the ravage or the ruin which he has created. He leaves marks only on earth, that is on land, and not on water. As the man approaches water, power of the ocean overcomes him, that he cannot do anything on water. whatever is done on water is the mighty ocean that does it. This says a shadow, nor doth remain a shadow of man's ravage. इंसान के जो बर्बादी का कोई चिन्ह भी पानी पे नहीं रहता है. That is all the work is of the ocean. Save his own. When for a moment, like a drop of rain, he sinks into their depths with bubbling groan. Now he says, and save his own. He says, only a shadow remains. एक परछाई सी उसकी रहती है, except his own. जब उसकी खुद की. कैसे? When for a moment, like a drop of rain, he sinks into their depths with bubbling groan. He says, when the ships are wrecked and human beings cannot do anything, and then they just drown in the water. When they drown in the water, like a drop of rain, एक बरसात की एक बूंद के जैसे, like a drop. You imagine the immensity of water and the comparison of that one drop of rain. What is the power or the importance of that one drop of rain? So here is the comparison of the ocean and ocean to the man, the power of man. He's saying there is no comparison at all. This man, existence of man is just like a drop of water. That is, this drop of water is non-existent. If you want to find, the ocean is so vast, and if you want to evaluate the value of one drop of water, it is negligible. So he says the power of men is negligible as compared to the power of ocean. And he sinks into their depths with bubbling groan. Bubbling groan, that is bulbule ki tarah. If you remember that when you sink or whatever, anything which has air in it, and when it starts sinking, it bubbles come up. That is, the air, water takes place of air, and the bubbles are released from that. So when a person dies, he dies. Before he dies, there are lots of bubbles which come out, and then he dies with bubbling groan, without a grave, unknelled, uncoffined, and unknown. That is, when the ships wreck, or human beings, or man, when they drown in ocean, they die a very unrespectful death. They meet without a grave. Actually, in Christians and in Muslims, dead bodies are buried in the graves. And unknelled. Now, knell is the death bell. It is the bell which is rung in the church when this cremation of the dead body, or the burial of the dead body, is taking place. That is, when when the last rites of the dead person are met, or they are performed, then the bell also rings. But this bell is different. There is a different kind of a bell which rings. That is, this church bell rings in a different manner when the death, you can say the last rites of the dead person are going on. So that is the knell. Unknelled means no bell is going to ring for him. Uncoffined, that is, dead bodies are placed in coffins. Coffins होते हैं ताबूत, जैसे उन ताबूत में dead body को रखा जाता है, and then they are buried. And unknown, that is, when the person dies, in the water there are no colonies or plot numbers or colonies and places कि कहाँ पर वो दफन हुआ, कहाँ वो मरा. Like on land we have the city, and then we have the colony, then we have the lanes, then we have the house numbers, all these things. That on land a man or his existence or his residence can be located. But on water, that is, where he has died, where he has actually drowned, there is no specific place. So we don't even know where that person has died. So he meets a very disrespectful or unrespectful death. He meets at your shore. That when he comes in contact with you, and if you are not happy, if you want to drown that person, you can easily do it, and he dies a very painful death, that is bubbling groan, and he is not even respected after his death. because there is no grave for him, there is no bell for him, there is no coffin for him, and it is not even known where he has died. So, as compared to the ocean, the power of men is negligible. So, this is a comparison with the power of ocean and men. So, you please read this poem again and try to understand it. And if you have any queries, you can post it on the WhatsApp group. And I'll be posting some notes also on the WhatsApp group. So, this is all for today. Thank you for your patient listening, and we will meet soon with another stanzas of this poem. Thank you.